Here we go. Fantastic. Great to see everybody again. My name is Garric Vosloo, this is Functional Medicine Fast Track. I'm with Jared McDonald today. He is Functional Medicine Fast Track's business strategic coach. And we're just super excited to come to you today. We're going to have a discussion, break down some myths, and have some fun and just enlighten you. So welcome, Jared. Great to have you on board today.
Awesome. Thanks, Garric. I'm super excited to be here to talk about the myths we're gonna break through, some concepts. It's gonna be awesome. Super excited.
Absolutely. Jared, maybe you want to just give a little bit of background from your side, with your journey into functional medicine, being a patient, a coach, your background, psychology, and just fill people in a little bit. Let them know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in psychology. That's what I went to school for. I worked for a lot of years with like kids, teens, youth. And then I became a patient of functional medicine. My wife got sick about when we first got married, so just about five and a half years ago. And we started exploring because we weren't getting answers. And we started with kind of a paleo, real foods, paleo, autoimmune. Like we went all those routes and started working with practitioners. And that's really for me what got me into functional medicine. I just ate it up, like consumed as much information as I could. And then I actually got a job helping run a center that took a functional approach to childhood disorders. So there I was helping bring people into the center and teaching people about what the approach was, but also I was coaching nutrition for all the families and the kiddos in the program. And so I did that for a while, and then I started actually working in practices with practitioners. Kind of in the same role as directing the practice with their business and marketing and kind of the internal systems, and then also coaching nutrition for anybody who needed that. And as I kind of developed, and we actually made a physical move in location, we moved closer to my wife's family, I started branching out and working with practitioners all across the country and all across the world. So, and helping with the business and the marketing strategy. So that's kind of been, in a 2-minute version, that's been the last probably 5-6 years of my life as far as kind of how I got into it and coach. And, I still do a little bit of coaching on nutrition. I do it myself. I totally live a very kind of functional medicine principle life where, we're managing our stress and our lifestyle and our diet and our exercise and all that stuff, and seeing some really powerful things for me as a person. But then it's amazing to see what practitioners can do at their practices and that help their patients. I mean, it's amazing. So it's just fun to be part of such a massive movement in the healthcare field in general, and individuals' lives as well. So been an awesome journey, and it's still on its way. Like that's the best part, is it's still going. So
exactly, it's just starting, and I love that whole process. Sometimes everything you go along is building you towards where you're at. And I mean, that is fundamentally why we brought Jared in as our business coach, because he has been part of both sections as a patient, helping with practitioners, and really been fundamental. So for us, we believe he's the authority as far as just helping on the strategic side. And so, Jared, I want to just ask you first a general question. Let's just kind of open it up. We know functional medicine is different to conventional medicine, and then it is different when we bring it into our practices and integrate it in. So there are challenges that come along with that. Do you want to maybe just go through what you have found in your experience working with functional medicine practitioners in our program, and over and above that, what have been the main areas of concern that you have found that have limited patients in making a successful integration with functional medicine?
So maybe I'll start with talking about those who are not doing functional medicine in the healthcare field. I grew up in a home. My dad is a MD. He's 40 years in practice, private practice. So in talking with him, and I have tons of friends and family, and obviously talking with lots of doctors, it's hard. I mean, if you're like trying to do the insurance, you're trying to just medicate and treat a symptom, like you're not really seeing the results you want to see. And I hear this time and time again, and that's why so many people say, I need to find a different way. I need to find, as a practitioner, a way to actually get my patients well, especially when we talk about chronic disease, right? Acute injury, like I just broke my ankle, that's great for modern medicine, surgeries, medication, like you totally need it. But for chronic illness, as a patient with type 1 diabetes, there's no solution other than, you know, just medicate and that's it, which doesn't often solve the problem. So for practitioners, the transition is amazing because they get so like the results are phenomenal they can get with their patients. And that's the thing that when I've talked to literally like hundreds, thousands of practitioners that take the functional medicine approach, or they're transitioning to it. And the number one thing they say is, I want to help people get well. Like money falls under that. Like they're not as concerned about making the money as helping people, which is so awesome to be part of and work with people like that. And the only way to really make that change in people's lives is to learn the functional medicine. Like you have to learn how to make that change in people's lives. And there's so many components to that, you know, and that's something that obviously we talk a ton about in the program and in all the training courses you can go to. I mean, it's awesome to learn those things, I know, as a practitioner. But then you know, there's a few things that are different. You know, it's harder because if you have 30-minute to an hour-long appointment with somebody, or a little bit longer visits than your typical like 7, 8, 10-minute visits, you know, your insurance is going to have a harder time reimbursing that. So you kind of run into like, how do I structure my practice? Like, do I do cash? Do I do packages? Do I just do time of, you know, like, how do I structure things in my business? What are the internal kind of systems that I have to implement? So that's a big component, is like, how do I actually do it? Like, how do I put it into my practice? And then marketing, obviously, like if you do, you know, say, hey, we're doing a different approach, like how do you teach people about this approach? How do you get patients to say, oh, like I actually need to make some changes in my life. I need to be compliant. And so there's some compliance. Obviously, that's, I think, a common thing in healthcare is compliance, right? Like, how do you get people to stay on board? And in functional medicine, there's so many amazing ways to get people to make the changes that they need to, whether that be just, you know, a diet change. Maybe they need to cut something out. Maybe they need to bring something in, or maybe it's stress. I don't know, right? For that person, there's so many amazing things that I know, Garric, you're like really good at this. Of really helping people make those changes. So those are a couple of things, some, you know, internal stuff, and then the external stuff as far as the marketing, getting the message out there, that kind of thing, I think are some of the things that practitioners are kind of like, how do I do it? Like, what do I do when I make this transition, along with obviously how do I learn the functional medicine? So I think those three areas are probably the bigger ones, kind of high level stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's such a great summary, because that transition is tricky, because we're moving out of that conventional approach from consult to consult, which is usually minimized time, to now we need to get a patient's outcome, the result. And so let's maybe chat a little bit about that, because when we say we're going to chat business strategies, people often think we're just chatting cash and money, but it's actually more than that. What we fundamentally doing is what you spoke about, is our hearts as healthcare practitioners are to help our patients to the highest possible level. The difference with functional medicine, as we know, is just far more involved, and it's not these short, jabby sessions. So bringing those programs together to help those outcomes is part of the business strategy that a lot of practitioners in functional medicine just haven't got right. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I know a lot of practitioners who don't really do any sort of external marketing. Now, I don't suggest that, because it's great to be able to have predictability in your business. However, I know a ton of practitioners who have 7-figure practices, right? Like really successful practices, who do zero marketing, and they have really good internal systems. So it's all, and it's not just about like, you know, they show up and, you know, whatever, but they have ways of helping people be compliant, and how to follow up with people, and just simple communications, right? Like, how do I communicate? Like, when somebody's starting into my practice, like, how do I get them in the system? How do I get paperwork to them? I mean, all those things are part of it. And then how do I teach them, right? How do I educate along the way? So I think that the practitioners who do it the best have really good systems. And it's not even, this is the hard thing. If you're a medical practitioner and you own your own business, you're first and foremost a business owner. Unfortunately, most practitioners are like, I don't want to be a business owner. But if you are in private practice, you have to be a business owner. And so therefore, you have to follow business principles. And it's not, you know, you don't want to be salesy or pushy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about business principles like creating systems within your business, right? If you go to like Amazon, I mean, I'm sure, I've never been there, like headquarters and stuff, but it runs like a well-oiled machine. They just have systems down that it's automated. It runs really smoothly. They don't have to like, kill themselves to run it like that. I'm sure there's a lot of work that goes into it, but in a medical practice, if you can totally set those things up, externally with your marketing, there's definitely ways to do that with systems. And then obviously internally with strategy, with your communications, with your education, compliance, following up, accountability, all those things that are sometimes really hard to do as a practitioner when you're only seeing patients for like, a few minutes every once in a while. How to even structure like your care. What do you do in your office? I mean, all of that is part of business strategy. And it's not just cash and marketing. It's really creating a whole experience, if you will, right? Creating and at Disneyland, I always use this example. Disneyland creates the best experience. That's why people go back year after year. So they follow really good business principles and principles of just helping people have that great experience. So that's really, when I think business, I think marketing and all that, but I think it's about an experience for people, especially with their health, which is the most important thing to them. So really, if we can create that, it's powerful for people to make the change, but also powerful for the practice to be successful as well.
I love that. I mean, systems is everything, really, if you want to just not have the life of you sucked out. So, and we clearly showing two distinctions here that you're speaking about: patient systems and then your practice business systems, those two there. Now, what is your experience? Maybe you want to give us a percentage or number of how many functional medicine practices out there are just not getting that right.
I don't know if I've ever thought about a percentage on that, but honestly, I've talked to so many practitioners who are struggling. I mean, we're talking, it doesn't matter if you're an MD, a chiropractor, a physiotherapist, an acupuncturist, a nutritionist, or anything. We're just talking the principle of functional medicine, but so many people are just struggling to make ends meet because they don't understand these. You have to have systems in everything you do, and they're not implementing it obviously correctly. And there are, if you get online, you start researching. I mean, the biggest name out there in this kind of approach, you got Dr. Oz, but he's not really like doing what we're talking about, right? But there are some people who are really successful, and if you talk to them, it's all about systems. And we're talking systems for your patients, systems for your practice, which includes your marketing and your business and all that stuff. But I would say more are struggling to create a really good system, and they're getting by, right? It's not like you can't be successful in functional medicine for sure, because you can, and that's where the whole medical industry is moving. I mean, everybody's moving that way. And so, you're ahead of the game if you're already looking at it. But I think more people are struggling to figure out how to make it work because it's new. Some people are just barely getting into it. So it's like creating, a new business. But I think, more are probably struggling to make it happen correctly than those who are really successful at it. But those who are really successful, not just monetarily, but they're creating the lives that they want, right? They're able to have the schedules they want, the finances they want. They're able to, I call it sustainability, right? Not just monetarily, but for you to have the life that you love and a practice that you love. And when you can do it right, it's like practitioners are loving it. So that was a long answer to a short question, I'm sure, but that's kind of what I've seen over the last 5 or 6 years.
So your key distinction is that those that have systems in place for their patient education, moving them forward towards an outcome, they've got the business systems in place, are the ones that are having successful practices as far as profitability goes, getting good patient outcomes, having it all in place. But that is the minority. So what is happening with the majority of functional medicine practices that aren't getting it right? Why is it? Do they not know that systems are needed? Do they not know how to put systems in place? Is there a mental block? Is it a mindset thing? What have you found with those reaching out and that you've seen in the program that are not getting that right? Where do you think the stumbling block is? Is it a combination of things?
So all those things you mentioned, I think huge is mindset. because if you're coming in, mindset in a couple of different ways. One, your own fears that hold you back from like taking a step forward, taking action, that kind of thing. Mindset that like, I'm a health practitioner, I shouldn't have to run a business. Like practitioners that like, especially if you're in private practice, if you gotta take that, bull by the horns and say, this is my business. I got to run it like a business person would. And with, I'm not being like, cutthroat business. I mean, like, you love people, you want to care for people, and your business is taking care of them, but you got to have those systems. So mindset's huge for practitioners. And then I think a couple of components that they're really like, they just don't know how, like in medical school or whatever school you go to, like you don't get taught that. Like some do, like I think in general, chiropractors probably get the most business training, or like at least they talk about it the most. I don't know why that is, but like just in general, like even with chiropractors or medical doctors or physiotherapists, it doesn't matter. Like you don't get a lot of business training. So, like how do I create a system for care, right? Like a lot of times practitioners have the idea of like, just keep coming. Like, well, keep coming until you get better. They don't know how to like help someone create a plan for their health to achieve the result in a general timeline, right? Like so even that is a struggle for people to like conceptually understand that like people's they want to know that they're going to get a result, and they want a clear plan, and they want a system that's going to take them there, and an experience that's going to help them feel supported and accountable along the way. So knowing how to create those types of things, and then obviously the big one, the marketing, right? Like people are like, I don't know how, I have no clue how to market. I have no clue. And it's not so much even like Facebook ads, because that's like anybody out there can learn to do Facebook ads off of YouTube, but it's all about how do you communicate to your patients, right? I think that's a bigger problem, is that practitioners in general in the health field, they communicate from their perspective of they've been in medicine for many, many years. And they're like, they understand words that like most people, even if they deal with it, they're like, I don't know what that means. Like, and so it's just a matter of learning how to communicate through your marketing, but also in your practice. And I know like, we talk a ton about that with people in the program that come through the fast track program. It's all about communicating to your patients, whether that's through your marketing and you're doing, a Facebook Live like we're doing today, or you're communicating in an appointment with a patient. It's all about how you communicate and how you can help them see what they're going to achieve. So I think those are probably a couple of the bigger ones. And that, I'm a big picture guy, so I'm kind of putting a blanket there with communication, because that goes into how you communicate with patients, how you, which would be like in-person, emails, follow up, your phones, if you're going to call them on the phone, like all that's kind of just generally communication, but then your marketing piece too. But then, like people just don't know how. They don't know how to set these kinds of things up. And then I think they get into like maybe an example would be like technology. A lot of practitioners are like, I don't want to touch technology, so they just don't do it. And they're like hurt because of it. They struggle because of it. And it's like, it's part of it is breaking through that mindset, right? That's a limitation that holds them back, which we talk a ton about in the fast track program as well, is like how to break through these mindsets of or these fears and things that are holding you back to take action and see success. So I think that was the question you hopefully I answered. I can't remember totally what you were asking, but I think those are the things that are like biggest struggles for practitioners.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you do separate those two, where people got systems, not systems, what's holding them back, and I think you brought that down to a great summary of those different components. I mean, there's the tech component for sure. People we often hear just saying, I don't know what to use, how to use it, I'm scared of that. The copy area is a big area. It's like, how do I actually write an email? How do I put a video together? What do I write in? Then the mindset side is a huge one, probably the biggest. And maybe let's just chat a little bit about that mindset one, because for me, I believe that's probably 90% of the game, while most people just don't move forward. So let's chat a little bit about this concept that you and I often talk about. And it's about getting something done versus knowing everything and then feeling comfortable to get started. So, that concept. Everybody's holding back. They get all the theory right, but they never get started. Versus what we often say is just get started, and then you're going to learn along the way. Do you want to talk a little bit to that concept?
So, you know, like if I can be honest, my like dream job would just be to like be a total mindset guru, coach, like motivational speaker. Like I love Tony Robbins. Like I'm a total mindset guy. But when we're talking business, like mindset is like 90, or business success is 90% mindset. Because if you have the right mindset, you'll figure it out. Nothing else matters because you know you will do it. So people who are successful at business are mindset masters. They have to master themselves. And really it comes down to just breaking through the fear, self-discipline, self-mastery. Like I love that stuff. And Garric, you're a really good example of this, a great example to me of like not knowing exactly how to do everything, but just doing it anyway and seeing success. And like I know I talk to so many practitioners, and we see it in the program a ton. You know, you're like, there's so many questions like, is this inside my scope of practice, right? Like, can I even do this kind of thing? And then I got to learn how to do it. Once I realized that, yeah, I can, I got to learn all the, you know, like blood labs and the genetics and all that stuff. And so many practitioners are like, I don't know how to get feel like I don't know how to get a result. So they hold themselves back, or I don't understand the technology component, so I'm just not going to do it, right? It holds them back. And the key is if you can break through that mindset and develop the right kind of mindset, you'll figure it out. You'll do it. And then when you can take that action, you will see far greater results for patients, and you will see far greater results for you as a practitioner in your fulfillment, and you'll see just a higher level of living, really. It's amazing to see, and like I feel like every day I'm just like scratching the surface of this, because it's just like it gets deeper and you understand more of it, and when you're just, it's overwhelming to like think about everything that's got to be done, but if you've got the right mindset, like it's not overwhelming. It's an awesome thing that like failure is great. Like we love failure. We need it, right? Like you have to do it. But anyway, I love the mindset component of it. And again, like I said, Garric, you've done, I marvel at what you've done, and just like not only with your own practice, but then training other practitioners, the results you get for your patients. I mean, some of it you're like, I don't know. I didn't know how to do it, but I just did it anyway. And it's just amazing to see the outcomes that you've gotten for your life and your patients' lives and all the practitioners you've helped along the way now. I mean, it's phenomenal to see, and it's all because of the mindset, breaking through that.
Well, thanks, Jared. I appreciate the kind word there. And I think it's a concept that we just try and instill in ourselves the whole time, because it's kind of like that onion that you unpeeling, but it never ends. Because once you've done something and then you kind of get comfortable at it, and then it's what's the next goal? Okay, the only way to get to that next goal is to do something uncomfortable. And before you know everything, you've got to do something. So many practitioners we hear nowadays are just on that fence, and it's really those myths around what you spoke about so clearly. Is like, is it in my scope of practice? Oh, it's too hard to learn. Maybe I shouldn't go that next step. You know, is genetics, is that something that I can even go through? And specialized lab, is that something that we can do nowadays? You know, it's so amazing with that on the fence story. And some people can live there for years, and they know functional medicine is like the right thing. They see it happening. They've experienced it themselves as patients. And they're still kind of stuck in that concept, that mindset concept of like, what is the next step, and really can I do it? So what would you say if there's like one golden thing to get around that for somebody who's like sitting back and have thought about that and just knows in their heart that they're not taking that next step? What would you say, like, as a coach? How do you get over that?
I would say, to borrow a term from Nike, just do it. Like, I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Like, there are some things though. Like, there are some things you can do to break through. Like, we talk about like a cycle of like belief, right? Whatever you believe, you're going to take action on. So, like, I always use the example of math. If you're bad at math and you believe that, well, you're probably going to do things to avoid math, and you're probably not going to like study math when you're in school. Like, it's just not your thing because you believe you're bad at it. But if you can intercept that belief and you can take action on the new belief, you can say, you know what, I may not know how to do everything right now, but I have I have an idea, I have a hypothesis that I think will work, and I have a plan, or at least a few steps of a plan. So now it's about taking the action. Then it's all about experiencing a result. Maybe the result was awesome and you're like, this is awesome, like I'm gonna do it again. Or maybe the result wasn't so good. Maybe it is a failure, but realizing that failure is okay. And that result gives you feedback to your belief. And you have to, again, sometimes intercept there and say, hey, like failure is awesome. I now know how to change. I now know how to take new action on that belief and do it again. And that's just the cycle that I think is so key. And like there's so many levels of it like you talked about, but it's just looking at your beliefs, saying what's holding me back. But then I think part of it, honestly, is having the plan, knowing like what to do, because that's a huge thing. And I know we talk a lot with the practitioners in our program, like that's what the fast track's all about. Like you have a very clear plan of how to learn it, how to do it. And it's just now about taking the action. So many people get hung up on that because they don't know what to do. And so they just don't do anything. But when you have that plan and you can now say, all right, the only belief that I have, the only thing holding me back is what I believe up here about my own capabilities, which we do a great job in the fast track of like helping break through as well. But it's all about just taking that action on the plan that you have and then just doing that cycle like we talked about. So I think, I don't know, you asked for one thing, that's probably one thing, is just having that plan and taking action on it. Maybe that's two, but
yeah, I think that's golden. I mean, in one sentence, that's really what it probably is. And I know from my experience, just kind of moving forward, I know I've had moments that have gone into years because I've just been stuck in my own head. And often, as you say, you haven't got a plan to get out of it. So first have a plan and know what to do. And sometimes you need to have somebody to help you. What is that plan? And then that accountability. So, you know, with a coach, with a mentor, whatever it is, because they're the ones that often can move you forward rapidly. And I'd love to bring that into our next question. And just in your experience of being a coach from a nutritional side, a business coach, when you've had or seen the aha moments from practitioners that you've helped, how quickly have you seen results turn around? And I know you've got some great examples on numbers that you've helped practitioners in their practice go from like 30K to 90K. Maybe you want to give us some examples of how quickly you've seen a change around when somebody has that change and moves forward and takes the action. Yeah.
So before I answer that, I'm going to actually go back. I want to re-answer the last one, because as you were talking, it just was like, well, that's it. And this is what has been the change for me and the practitioners, is not just having a plan, as I would say, get a mentor. Because your mentor most likely is going to have a plan and they're going to help you take action on the plan. So scratch that. I would say get a mentor. That for me is the key. And to segue that into what you asked, like the first practitioner that I ever worked with, he took a chance. He was like, look, like I've never done anything like this. And I was like, I've done it in a learning center. And anyway, it was just kind of an experiment. And I was like, I'm going to take action. But we took action, and his clinic now is 7 figures. He started out at 30K a month. We worked together for a really long time, like, well, about 2 years. I don't know if that's really long in some perspective, but we worked together for about 2 years. And within the first 4 months of implementing what we've been talking about, all the different systems, and this guy actually was one of those that wasn't doing any marketing at the time. He was in the 30s, like averaging, I think, like 38 or 39,000 a month. And he went to about 53 or 54,000 within the first 4 months of just improving his systems. And I mean, like, talk about a life change. That's like $15,000 more a month that you're making. But the cool thing that he told me throughout this whole process, he kept saying it was, I've never gotten better outcomes for my patients. And that was for me, like, that's my goal, is I want you to get good outcomes and I want you to make more money. Like, that's what I would do as a business coach, is that's my goal. And so over the next year and a half, like probably when we made that first initial bump, and then he went to like 70s and 80s, like within the next 6 months. And his referrals were boosting. He still wasn't doing any marketing. Referrals were boosting. And because everyone was having this amazing experience, his schedule went from like 2 weeks booked out, like 1 to 2, like fully solid, which was pretty good, until the point where like he's now literally like, I talked to him the other day. He's literally like, he cannot fit in new patients for 3 months. And he's like, I hate it because I want to see people and I hate that they can't come in and get results. And so he's actually brought on a couple of the practitioners. He's bringing on another guy right now, actually. And I mean, just like, and he's doing 7 figures now, like $90,000 a month, every month, you know? And so it's pretty amazing to see. I mean, that's one story, but it's the same thing for every practitioner. Like I've seen coaches who aren't necessarily even like, you know, a typical health practitioner. They're just coaches. And when they start implementing the right things we've been talking about, obviously they break through the mindset. They're able to do that. I mean, I've seen people make like zero money to like they're making $15,000 to $30,000 a month, just and seeing awesome results at the same time. So it's amazing to see like how quickly it can happen for these practitioners who really get that mentor, right? And they understand like, how can I have a plan and how do I take action on it and have somebody help me break through to be able to take action. I mean, it's amazing, literally like, and there's lots of stories that I've heard from other practitioners that I haven't necessarily even worked with that they do the same thing. And it's amazing. I mean, no time flat essentially, right? A couple of months, maybe in the first year versus those who don't do it. Like we talked about, I know practitioners who have been doing this for 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years in functional medicine and still like just like barely making ends meet. I know practitioners who've had to close their practice because they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to like learn the skills necessary, including, you know, the functional medicine skills and the business skills and principles to make it work. And that really was the difference, was they just didn't have someone or didn't know how to do it themselves. And and then there's those who do know how to do it. They just want to do it faster. And that's, you know, they hire somebody so they can do it faster. Yeah, I think that's the big distinction there and how quick it can happen.
And I think that's so key to just maybe reiterate is those that don't get it right sometimes actually have to close their doors in the end. So it's not about purely just learning functional medicine. And I can relate to that myself. You know, more than 10 years ago when I started bringing that into our practice, it wasn't all roses. I mean, it took us a long time to get our heads around, first of all, what is functional medicine before we actually started getting great patient outcomes and then putting a successful practice together. So, yeah, I can fully relate to that. We see that, we've heard it, we know friends that have been in that position. And it's just those fundamentals of systems, having the right mentor, and getting your mindset right to overcome those barriers. Otherwise, you're going to sit around for years going like, what is happening? Everybody else is succeeding. Why am I sitting here? You know, just it's not happening. And those principles go into every practice, every business. It's nothing new that we're speaking about. It's principles. I think what we're really doing is just trying to help people realize that functional medicine is exquisite when you bring alongside your traditional skill set and add it in, because it can get those great patient outcomes that no conventional medicine can't. So rather maximize, if you're bringing in that skill, make sure that it's all working properly, because that's sustainable. We don't want practitioners disappearing after a few years after they've got great functional medicine knowledge. That's a waste. We don't have enough anyway. So it's so key just to get it right quickly, because you've got to make that decision at some stage to have mentors. I mean, you and I both got mentors. You need mentors. And if you don't have a mentor that has a mentor, then you've got the wrong mentor.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah. I mean, it is just so fundamental, bring training and mentorship in together.
And I'll say this too, Garric, on that point before we maybe move on.
Yeah.
There are not enough functional medicine practitioners in the world. Like chronic disease, if you know anything about statistics, it's like on the rise, obviously, and there's not enough healthcare practitioners who know how to help it. So what we need is we need more, but we need practitioners who are good practitioners who can have really successful practices to help more people. That's really what we need. Like we don't just need we do. We need every practitioner to come and change, but those who are already here, you've got to have a better practice that can get the results and be sustainable, like you said. We don't want you closing doors in 2 years because you're struggling to make ends meet and you got to go work for somebody else. We want you to get good patient outcomes and make the money doing it that you need to and you want to, because you're going to impact more people. You're going to be able to see more by developing better systems. You can see more people in your practice, and that I think is so key. Is getting those who are already in there, the right systems, and then those coming in, being able to learn and grow from those who've already done it. Like you said, it's taken you 10 years to do this, and you were able to impact more people over those years because of all the things you've done. And now that you've done it, it's helping those that are just coming in not have to go through all that heartache and the money and the pain and the, all the struggle, the blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, it can be that much faster. And I think that's the key, is those who are in it, we need them to be doing it well, really from all perspectives.
You summed it up beautifully there, I think, Jared. I mean, that's exactly why we've put the fast track system together, is because we bumped our head so many times. You can probably see it on my head. I mean, I used to have hair, and now it's all just kind of been straight off. So we've jumped those hurdles. We've traveled that road for you. There's no need for you to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars working it out and coming bruised every week. It's just not necessary. There are people that have gone through it already, and it's really there to link into those systems that you can get ahead quicker, because we need more healthcare practitioners in functional medicine. That's the bottom line. So maybe if we're kind of rounding up, and maybe you want to give your last quick bit of advice for those people just sitting on the fence, they're thinking about it for a few weeks, few months, few years. Like, what would be your advice to them at this point?
Yeah, so this is my own advice, but I heard this from a practitioner who's very successful. I mean, Chris Kresser, people know him. He's like, I get his emails every week. Like, I love him. Like, he's a great, super phenomenal, like, educator, just been rated like top, practitioner. He's an acupuncturist, so he's not even, he's made a great example of what can be done. But he said this. He said in referring to whether you're hiring somebody, whether you're making a change in your practice, he's like, you need to do it 3 to 6 months before you think you need to do it. Like, basically what he's saying is you just need to start now. Like, if you're on the fence and you're like, oh man, like maybe I'll wait 6 months, like it's now is the time. And I've even heard you say that about like doing things in your business. Like, you need to do it like 3 to 6 months before you think you're actually going to need it, because it's going to make it go that much faster, and you're going to reach your goals even faster. So that's honestly, like, I love that. I borrowed that from him. And I think it's right on track. You really need to do it even sooner than you think you do. And it's like we've mentioned, you got to just take the action. So I would do it. Like, I've been in this world a long time. I've seen all the training programs out there. Garric and I met, I think, a year ago. We just kind of met through email. I think I reached out to him as a practitioner, said, hey, I'd love to chat with you about what you're doing. And he said, I've got this awesome program. And it is. I mean, I've seen other programs out there, and what Garric has done with the fast track is amazing. Like, as far as learning the functional medicine skills, but then how do you apply that into like what do you actually do with it, right? From the business side, from the mindset side, from the clinical side. And that's what I would say is you got to do it before you think you need to, because you're still in the world of like early adopters and general public, like people who are early adopters right now, like you're still like, there's the growth is going to be exponential here in the next 5 to 10 years. And you want to have a way to fast track that so that you're benefiting your patients, you're benefiting yourself, and creating really the life that you want to create. So that's what I would say is do it. Like you said, just do it, but do it sooner than you think you need to do it, which is probably now. So.
Yeah, I think that's golden, Jared, without a doubt. I mean, if it's in your blood, just get it done, because it's not going to leave your blood. It's like there. And so just as we're rounding up, I want to thank Jared for just awesome chat. Always adds such value to our program. Whenever I'm with him, it's just great energy. Wherever you are listening in, send us some comments. Let us know where you are. Hit the like button so we know that you're listening in and we're helping to add value to you. And then maybe just put in the comments anything you want us to expand on what we spoke about today. So we spoke pretty generally It's a massive subject as far as business and clinical strategy with integrating functional medicine, and it is the key component. Functional medicine to learn, that's pretty straightforward. But how do you successfully implement it and integrate it with patients in your practice from a business perspective as well? So leave us some comments. Let us know what you want us to expand on more. Let us know where you're at, the state, the city, the country. That'll be great to know. Give us the thumbs up. If you want more information, you can book a call straight with us. We'll get more clarity with you on the call, exactly how it can integrate into your clinical setting, and then how you can change your life pretty rapidly with the fast track system, if that is a right fit. Otherwise, we can point you in the right direction. So that is what we have available from our side to help you. We need more healthcare practitioners in functional medicine. If you want to go to our website, it's www.fm-ft.com, and you'll see that in the text below. We'll put it in there as well, and we'll put the link in to book a call. So Jared, thanks again. It's been great having you alongside, and we're looking forward to many more just to help everybody out there.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, Garric.
Thanks, Jared.